Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Lucas.
and we are two aspiring filmmakers making unnecessary commentary on famous movies.
Each week, we will randomly select a film to analyze, discuss, and review.
We will select the film at the end of each podcast, so you will have ample time to watch the movie before the next episode.
We are slightly qualified film students.
Hello!
Welcome back to another episode of Slightly Qualified Film Students.
Yes.
Coming in hot.
Today we're going to be reviewing The Master, Paul Thomas Anderson's career high in his own view and in my view and many others. It's really just a great film of the 2010s. Definitely one of the standout films of the last decade.
Yeah, for
in
sure.
my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just really amazing.
It's like an all-around kind of package film. And Paul Thomas Anderson is just an incredible director in general. He's made so many fantastic films, and he's like one of those great writer-director combos. You know, with so many great films like The Master, but also Punch Drunk Love, There Will Be Blood, Inherent Vice, Boogie Nights. I mean,
He's just got a great mix of dramas and comedies, you know?
Great filmography.
He's got some really funny stuff. He's got a very wide range.
And he's also very stylistic and artistic in how he makes his films.
I mean, this film is beautifully shot. I mean, like, I know 2012 isn't that long ago, but it really just kind of perfects the modern filmmaking look. With that shallow depth of field and very contrasty color design, color grade. Yeah. And it really just looks... I can't even say that it looks new, because it is, relatively new in the world of filmmaking, but... It just really masters that modern cinematography technique. It's a beautiful film. And it's an artsy film too. It's released in art houses first before theaters.
Yeah, it came out with a lot of mixed reviews. I mean, a lot of people didn't really like this film just because a lot of people, I don't think, really got it. And I understand that. I mean, it is a film that if you're not really into movies in that sort of way, you're going to just kind of be maybe bored watching this movie. I mean... Yeah,
it is on the longer side. It's over 2 hours. I think it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah. And it's a very deep philosophical film.
And also there's no like big conclusion by any means. You know, all of your characters kind of end up in the same place at the end. But this this is our 12th film we've done. And of all the films we've done so far, I will say that of all of the rewatches and first-time watches, this was my favorite movie that we've watched so far. Not favorite movie, but Children of Men is still my favorite movie, but just as a viewing experience, this was my favorite. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's a very surreal experience.
Yeah, it is.
While you're watching, especially the first act. There's like not a lot of dialogue, and just Freddy's journey from the Navy onwards to when he meets Lancaster Dodd is just a very surreal sequence of events that, I mean, the editing and cinematography help, but it's very disorienting almost. Like, things are just happening, and he's moving locations and all that stuff, and it's just very hard it's a hard film to watch. It can be confusing at times.
Yeah, it can be.
And it doesn't give it to you straight.
And this was my second time watching it, but the first time I watched this film, I was pretty young, and it was about 4 years ago, I would say now. And I watched it on my computer in like 480p. So that did not do it justice. And I just remember like finding it really slow, and even though I knew it was a good movie, I don't think I fully grasped it. And rewatching it now, it like had a completely different light to me. Like I saw it in a completely different way, and so many scenes like emotionally just hit me really, really hard. And I just really enjoyed watching this movie. It was awesome. Yeah, well, so let me pull up a quick plot summary here.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Freddy, a World War II veteran, is unable to deal with the post-war society. However, when he comes across a religious movement known as the Cause, he finds solace in it.
Yeah. I mean, with a film like this, you'd kind of expect it to have a very vague and broad plot summary, and that's kind of what that is. That really doesn't encapsulate what this film is truly about and what you'll get out of it. So I really have to say, if before you listen to this, please go watch The Master. I think this is definitely a viewing experience that shouldn't be tainted in any way. Like, you should go in completely blind.
It's a really interesting film too, and yes, I know it's loosely based on Scientology and on the founder of Scientology, and a lot of people call this film the Scientology movie, but I think a lot of people who say that are missing the point, because this film isn't really about Scientology. Yes, there is aspects of the Cause that we see throughout the film, but it's more about Joaquin Phoenix's character, and it's about veterans and how they're trying to, escape the reality of war, and for some reason this movement or this cause, it comforts him. And this film is more just about just how it's a character study. It's a huge character study, and this is one of my favorite characters that we've seen so far in all of the films we've done. I think Freddy is such an interesting character to look at because he's very problematic. He's like not the greatest guy, but there's something about him that he is still very childish to a certain extent, and you just subconsciously almost feel a lot of empathy for him.
And at the same time, he's a very messed up individual.
Yeah, he is.
He does kind of play that anti-hero kind of role because he does have a lot of issues with his mental health and kind of just the way he acts too. And Joaquin Phoenix's performance is obviously incredible.
Fantastic, also. Fantastic. Yes. Okay, do we want to hop into standout scenes then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
There's a lot of scenes that are really, really great. Like, I think that the processing scene, the first one with Freddy and Lancaster would be a very obvious choice. But to me, just the final scene between Lancaster and Freddy, where Seymour Hoffman sings like a slow boat to China. I don't know why, but that scene just hit me like the second time. I just think it's a great end to these characters' relationships, and just a really great end to the film. Like it's not the last scene, but it's like the last major scene. And I just it's such a well written scene, and it really just nails the head. It really just hits home the whole overarching themes of the film so perfectly, and I just love Philip Seymour Hoffman's voice in that scene.
I totally agree.
But I just think it's a great moment in the film, and
really is. Yeah, I mean, that scene it's beautiful. I mean, I'll talk more about it when we do the ending. But it's such a interesting scene, and there's a lot to analyze out of it too.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think the first time I watched it, that scene brought tears to my eyes. There's just something about Philip Seymour Hoffman singing that to Joaquin as he's crying. And it's this weird,
it's a beautiful
very
moment.
Unconventional goodbye, because even though, the master, Lancaster Dodd, he still is, whether he admits it or not, he is basically, fraud. He's a fraud to a certain extent. And even though these characters don't have the best relationship and they fight a lot and there's a lot of anger within them, they still have an emotional connection that we see build throughout the film. And this is the moment when they both know that they're probably never going to see each other ever again. And it's a beautiful goodbye that's very casual, but also very just emotional and beautiful. I totally agree. That's a fantastic scene. I also the processing scene, I do agree it is a very obvious choice, but I do think it is one of the best scenes in the entire film. It actually brought tears to my eyes the second time I watched it. I mean, Joaquin's performance in it is just
incredible.
Crazy.
Both the performances are incredible.
Both of them.
And just the way it's shot too. Like, I know it's just a simple, a really simply shot scene, but just something about it is so personal.
And how it's edited, like when they choose to cut, like sometimes they'll stay on their faces for a really long time.
So good.
It's such a fantastic scene, and I'm not going to choose it as my standout scene, even though it is probably my standout scene, because I just want to, choose something that's a bit more unconventional. But I just want to say that is such a good scene, and personally, probably the best scene in the entire film. But the scene I'm going to choose is the jail cell scene between Hoffman and Freddy. It's such an incredible scene, and it's only shot in two different angles.
Yeah.
But it's pure and utter emotion, and it's crazy.
It's intense. I think there's so much happening.
That scene and the processing scene is, I think, what solidified both Joaquin and Philip Seymour Hoffman for their Oscar nominations. I mean,
they were robbed.
It's just
were robbed.
Yeah, I really do think Philip Seymour Hoffman should have won Best Actor. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix lost against Daniel Day-Lewis.
That's fine.
And
I
Daniel
can see
Day-Lewis
that.
as Lincoln.
Philip Seymour Hoffman for
as much
should have taken it home.
As much as I love Django Unchained and Christoph Waltz, Hoffman should have won Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, it's such an incredible scene. The acting is beautiful, and I really do love how it's shot. Even though it is only two angles, I like that it's only two angles because it adds to the realism of it, and it makes you feel like uncomfortable because you're just watching this situation play out, and it's coming off of an already very intense scene that we've just witnessed.
Yeah.
And then they just up the intensity by a whole another level with just Freddy and Lancaster talking. And they up the intensity to a completely different level. It's a fantastic scene. That's what I'm choosing for my standout scene.
Yeah. And just to touch on that year in the Oscars too, that was like such a tough year.
It was.
You have Christoph Waltz in Django, and also Robert De Niro in Silver Linings Playbook is a great performance. Yeah. That should not go.
That's true. It is a great performance.
Like, that was a a good year. But still,
I still think Hoffman was the best performance, though. And I mean, I'm sure like the Academy was sad they didn't give him that award too, especially the fact that he passed away a year later.
Yeah.
So
rest in peace, absolute legend. He does have an Oscar though, so Yeah,
he does.
But yeah, he's a great actor. I really love him, especially like even his just smaller roles in The Big Lebowski, or his earlier stuff he's just such a great character. Like he's just such a great guy. Every film he's in that I've seen he just gives a great performance. Like even Schenectady, New York, that film.
Right.
He gives a great performance in that too.
I love him in Punch Drunk Love also.
Yeah. Just a great actor.
Great actor. Yeah, I mean, The Master came out with three acting nominations, no wins, but Joaquin Phoenix, Amy Adams, and Philip Seymour Hoffman all got nominated.
Amy Adams is really
So
good too. I want to like.
she is. She has a smaller character, but she's playing this very like Lady Macbeth kind of character
Hmm.
that's very menacing, and it's and she's hiding that over her like entire persona.
Yeah.
And I think she gave a really good performance as well. Okay, let's hop into some audience questions. The question is, two people can watch the same Anderson scene and have two different theories as to the character's motivations and aspirations. With that in mind, why do you think Philip Seymour Hoffman sings to Joaquin Phoenix in their final scene?
That's a tough question. Like the what do you think? What do you what do you think? I'm putting you on the spot for this one.
I think
Like
it's an artistic choice. I mean,
yeah.
it's a choice that they made because I think it is this goodbye scene, like we were saying before,
Hmm.
and it kind of symbolizes the fact it symbolizes their friendship to a certain extent, and also the fact that Philip Seymour Hoffman is playing this very like father figure to Joaquin Phoenix in this film,
Hmm.
and it kind of feels very like fatherly to like sing a comforting song, um, like when your son is sad or something like that. Like it seems something that makes sense, but it's also that they're both feeling a lot of emotion in this scene. And I feel like the song is almost there as if it's like Philip Seymour Hoffman basically trying to um, make it less awkward, I guess, to a certain
Yeah.
extent. It's just kind of this.
I mean, I don't really.
I don't know.
I guess it's more, in my opinion, like an artistic choice than.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's necessarily supposed to be looked into for a deeper meaning. Um, like obviously you can interpret it that way, but you can interpret this film in a lot of ways. Uh,
Yeah, you can.
yeah, and I think that scene in general is just Philip Seymour Hoffman, um, like basically understanding the fact that Joaquin Phoenix is probably never gonna see him again, but also acknowledging the fact that he knows Joaquin or Freddie needs a master or just needs someone
Mm-hmm.
to kind of lead him. Just that's the way he is. Um, and that's just kind of an acknowledgement of that at the very end. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. So we have, how do you read the closing moments of this film? What did you think about the darkest bit of irony, which is even though the cause was a hoax, it probably saved Freddy's life?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think really at the end of the day, like I was going to touch on this more in story and originality. Um, but I think in general, the film is just kind of about Freddy's need for a master or a cause or, just uh,
Mm-hmm.
something in his life to follow or to be a part of because
Right, yeah.
he doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have a woman or a significant other, and the war just really kind of took a lot of things away from him, and so he needs uh, someone or something to follow, because without it, he'll just basically turn into like an animal and just really have no purpose or sense of anything. Because that's kind of what you see at the very start, when he's taking
Yeah.
photographs or farming cabbage or whatever. He's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
wandering with no sense of purpose or no real ideas or no purpose in life. Um,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think that this kind of applies to everybody, uh, just
Mm-hmm.
people in general. Like, not that we need like a cult or a religion to follow. Uh, but just like a body of work or something that you're passionate about, or just something to drive you in life. And so I think that, even though for Freddie it's like a basically Scientology like cult that is just like a brainwashing cult, that's kind of what he needed, really, for his purpose to exist. So yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's like something that, coming out of the war and being a very emotionally damaged individual, and also in the war, it's like you are taking orders, and you're following lots of orders throughout the entire thing. So it's him coming out of this and really not knowing what to do with himself. And I think the master, Philip Seymour Hoffman, is kind of like this person that, yes, he finds like a purpose in the cause, but it's also that I think it's a similarity. It's almost like he feels more comfortable living a life like that. And I think it's interesting because the ending does leave you on a note that he hasn't really changed as a person. But I do agree that the cause definitely did save his life to a certain extent, because even though maybe as an actual person he hasn't grown that much, there is still that this experience has given him a slightly different outlook on life. He's still damaged, and he still is impulsive and all of those things. He's still an alcoholic and basically a sex addict. But to that, still he has a different look on life. He has learned a lot of things, and he's also just a bit more thoughtful. And I think that's a really interesting way to approach this character, and it is also why I said before, this is probably one of my favorite characters in general in film. Like when we're looking at character studies, this is a character that I think is just so interesting to look at. Yeah. Okay. Let's hop into the last question. This one's pretty cool. This has nothing to do with the movie, but
Okay.
personally, so what if you were, let's say you wrote a film, and you could choose 2 actors or actresses to play a part in your film, and you could choose 1 director to direct it, who would those people be?
I think you could go like a lot of different ways, for different genres. But I guess just in general, I think for actors, like I'd probably go with a duo of Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
Because, hear me out. Their chemistry is immaculate. Sure. Like they're so good, and they're like friends. Like I feel like they could absolutely kill a duo.
Yeah, I
and to direct it, I don't know. Like, I'd go maybe like someone more like a writer, like Charlie Kaufman. Like someone who just kind of has that artsy vision.
Okay, yeah. Right.
Yeah. Or
Sure.
I'd go with like Judd Apatow and just like a total epic comedy with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds. Like that'd be sick.
Yeah, that could work. I like that.
Like I don't know, that's a hard question, because it's in a way just kind of asking who's your favorite actors and director. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one. I think for director, I would I honestly I think I would choose Denis Villeneuve. How do you pronounce his name?
Yeah,
again?
Villeneuve.
We did this for Enemy.
I know. He's a great director.
He is a great director. And I feel like he is such a good director, but not like he doesn't have such an intense style that it would feel weird for him to direct a film that I wrote.
Right.
let's say, like you were saying with Wes Anderson, or if I would say Wes Anderson, or someone like Quentin Tarantino or something like that, where it feels like they need to direct things that they wrote. I feel like he is just a great director, and I love all of his work. So, and yeah, I think for actors, it's, I mean, I'm going to say Dustin Hoffman.
Okay.
And Michael Caine. I want a Dustin Hoffman and Michael Caine duo directed by Denis Villeneuve.
Dustin I think that Hoffman would be is an interesting choice. Like, are we talking
an amazing
Dustin
movie.
Hoffman in his prime, like Kramer versus Kramer, Dustin Hoffman, or like right now, like 83 years old Dustin Hoffman?
We're talking 83 Dustin Hoffman.
Damn.
We're talking.
Okay.
We are talking 83 Dustin Hoffman and 87 Michael Caine. And I want to see like an old time buddy movie directed by
hell yeah,
like the director of Blade Runner 2049. Dude, Dustin Hoffman and Michael Caine in an old buddy comedy with the cinematography of Blade Runner 2049. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll hop into the review of The Master.
Okay, and we are back
for Story and Originality, the review of The Master. Yeah.
Yes. So, The Master, Story and Originality. I think this is an extremely interesting story. And also, it's a pretty original film. I mean, it's a film that I can't compare it to anything, really. I mean, yeah, there's films about religions and cults before, of course, but there's nothing like this where that's more of the like B story, the B plot line to this film, and you're just getting such an interesting character study. I mean, yes, okay, there's character studies about World War veterans, there's many of them, but I just have never seen a film that approaches this entire concept in this way, and I think it is extremely original.
Yeah, it's very, very original. And not only that, but it just tackles so many big themes in life. It's just a really amazing story. And I kind of went into it with that question. But just this film covers everywhere from like PTSD basically, and like veterans to cult leaders and, like Scientology, but also with just this big overarching concept of humanity and what it means to have purpose in life. Like, and that's all within the same character study of this one poor guy. Like, it's just really interesting, and you can get so much out of this. And in terms of when you talk about what the film is about, I feel like everybody would have a different answer, and that's something I think is a really cool thing to have with the film, and not many films can do it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really interesting story, and yes, it is a long movie. It's a very long movie, but the story is what keeps this film going. I mean, no, it's not. There's a lot of other elements that keep this film going, but the story is one of those. And I think that this is a fantastic story. It's not perfect, but I loved it. I love this movie, and I think it's madly original. Yeah, I gave it a 9 out of 10 for story and originality.
I mean, fair enough, but just I gave it full marks for story and originality. I gave it 10%.
Nice. I
just
like
because
that. I can see that.
Like, the way it tackles so many themes, I don't know, this film, more than any other we've reviewed so far, it really just, like, it makes me reflect on my life. like it sounds so corny, but like it really does. Like, it really just like makes you think deeply.
You mean
Especially
Sing
like
Street didn't make you think back and
yeah.
think deeply?
Like I don't this film just it hits different. Yeah, it really just turns my brain on, and I just love the story. I really love it. So yeah, 10%.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's a very high 9 for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Let's move on to beginning out of 5.
Yeah, okay. I think that the beginning of this film is very beautiful. It's shot really well, and technically, it's great. But I think that in terms of establishing the character, it's done very well. Like, don't get me wrong, you learn a lot about Freddy's character in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a little on the slower side. In terms of beginning, and like it's definitely more apparent on my first viewing. Like I was a little bored, but upon second viewing I didn't really find it as boring. I was just kind of looking at the beauty of all these ocean shots, and really just looking into how well Paul Thomas Anderson is able to develop Freddy's character without even having any dialogue, really.
Yeah.
Just in the way he acts and presents himself. It's really great character development. And yeah, the cinematography is just absolutely stunning in the first couple scenes. Especially you got that very widely known shot of Joaquin Phoenix laying down on top of the mast. With everybody throwing food at him.
Beautiful.
That's just a great shot.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this beginning. I think it's a really interesting setup, and it's just beautiful. And I actually really enjoy the first act of this film quite a bit. And the scene where he's basically in that psychiatric recovery ward with all the other soldiers, and he's having that interview with one of the, I guess he's like a soldier doctor or something. He's like a psychiatrist. I really liked that scene. It's based off of a documentary called, what's it called? It's basically based off a documentary about veterans who come out of the war and had to go through these psychiatric evaluations before being allowed to go back into society. And they basically used word for word moments from that documentary. And I think it's a really interesting way to set up your character. You're giving him a lot of depth, like when he's talking about how he got the letter from his sweetheart, how he got that letter, and how it basically caused him to start crying during the war. Because of nostalgia, but he's obviously not telling this guy everything, and eventually we learn a lot more through the master bringing it out of him, especially in processing. But I think it is a really fantastic scene, and yeah, I think overall the beginning is really strong. It is, I agree, a little bit on the slower side, but I don't mind that because I think it's just a good way of setting up your character and really getting into his head. Like a lot of the films we've been doing lately, the beginnings are pretty, they're good setup, but they're pretty, similar. It's all the films we've done recently, it's like you have this sort of structure of how you set up your movie. And I thought that how the master did it was a lot different than we've seen before, and it was actually just a really good beginning. Yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 too. Yeah, a bit on the slower side, but overall very solid. Okay, let's move on to ending out of 5%. The ending is really what confused me kind of the most the first time I watched it. Not necessarily, I don't know if confused is the right word, but it almost gives you more questions than answers. Because the last interaction between...
the first time too.
The first time, the last interaction between Lancaster and Freddy is just so bizarre. Lancaster is talking to Freddy about, them, like handing out propaganda in the Franco-Prussian War in like a past life.
Yeah.
And they're just like discussing their past lives and their future lives, and not really, like, Freddy's not really saying much, like, and then you just get this really awkward like tidbit scene with him and a random girl at a bar, and then the final shot of him hugging the sand woman, which I like that shot. It's a great callback.
Yeah.
But I just think that the final scene between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix could have been the last scene in the film. I don't
agree.
really feel like the last shot and the little sex scene before it really added anything to the film. Yeah.
Yeah, I get what he was trying to do with that, especially with him basically asking her the same processing questions.
Yeah.
I get
Like,
what they're trying to do, but I just feel like, even though I still think it is a good ending, like, if this was a completely different movie and they ended like that, I would probably think it was a really strong ending, actually. But I just feel like, because the scene with him and Philip Seymour Hoffman was so epic and so emotional, that it's just better to end there, because you leave the audience, like, just, they've been hit so hard and you just leave them there. I mean, that's a great way to end a film.
Yeah,
and I feel like they could have
sure.
ended with that scene, and they could have still ended with that final shot. Like, they could have put that shot at the very end, and I think that would have been beautiful.
Because that final shot is kind of representing a lot of emotional weight that Joaquin Phoenix's character has. Like, I mean, it's very, like, metaphorical and all of that. Like, yeah, sure, that could be the final shot. But yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page here with that could have been the last scene. The slow boat to China scene.
Yes. And I just, but that scene is just so perfect. And it did confuse me the first time I watched it. I mean, this ending really confused me the first time I watched it. And I thought it was a lot deeper than it actually is. And it's not. It's not as deep as I thought it was. And I think the biggest thing is, when I saw this movie the first time, I didn't catch the fact that, like, that phone call in the movie theater was a dream. I didn't catch that. So I thought that he actually was like, I thought Philip Seymour Hoffman called him. And then I thought Joaquin Phoenix went over, and then I was like, wait, he called him, and then he's like, you should leave. Like, I was really confused the first time I watched it.
I did not get that.
You didn't get that it was a dream?
No.
Oh, see? Ben pulled on me.
Well, what's the significance of it being a dream?
Like, when he gets called in the movie theater by Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he's like, you have to come see me. That was a dream, because the shot right after right after Philip Seymour Hoffman hangs up the phone, it cuts to him asleep in the chair with no phone in his hand. And then when he goes to see Philip Seymour Hoffman, he says, I had a dream that you needed to see me. And Philip Seymour Hoffman is like, yeah, it's because we have this connection. Damn. Yeah, it was a dream. And I didn't catch that the first time. And I think that ending had a completely different meaning to me, because it was actually, this entire thing was actually Joaquin Phoenix's subconscious basically saying you have to go back and see him, because they do have this emotional connection, but it's not as spiritual as...
I mean, I mean, I guess I was still taking it not as much in a literal way, like I still saw the spiritual aspect of Joaquin feeling like he needed to go back and see him, but I just also thought literally they were also meeting. But yeah, thanks for letting me know that. I gave the ending a 4%.
Yeah.
I'm still learning stuff about the film even after the second watch. It's a very rewatchable film. It's a film that encourages rewatching.
And it's a scene, like, that scene didn't make me cry, but like, you know, that feeling when you're like, you just feel like you're gonna cry, but you don't cry. Um, that's what
Dude,
that's
just be a
last.
man and cry like me. I didn't cry during this film.
It was the line when he was like, if you go, I don't want to ever see you again. But then he says, but if you stay, or you could stay. And then Joaquin Phoenix looks at him and says, maybe in the next life. And that was just so beautiful. Like, it's just so,
And then Philip Seymour Hoffman's like, in the next life, we'll be sworn enemies.
yeah.
It's just like, damn.
But I love it. I loved it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think if
me
they had
too.
ended there, it would have been a perfect ending. It might have even been warranted a 6. But yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't hit as hard with that final scene. It's still a great ending, though. I agree with you. 4 out of 5. Let's move on to screenplay and dialogue, which is out of 8.
Yeah, I really like the dialogue and the screenplay. Great way to start it off. No.
Nice.
But I think that in general the writing is really great. And just the interactions, it's just like it is a great character study. You really get to dive deep into the psyche of both Lancaster Dodd and Freddy's characters, and really just kind of follow their journey in the crazy world of their cult. And I don't know, like, I don't think it's a perfect screenplay, because I think that it does play out a little slow, and there's some scenes that are there for character development, but just kind of almost pad the runtime in a way, and I don't feel like they add enough. Like to me, the interactions between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix absolutely carry the story, and you know, there's some like more minor moments on this ship, and I don't know, like I feel like there's some stuff that could have been removed, but overall I think it's a very strong screenplay. Obviously, if I think the story is really great, there's a high chance that for an original screenplay it's gonna score high as well, because I think that Paul Thomas Anderson really does really nail the concept of the story within the dialogue in the screenplay.
Yeah, it's a really good screenplay, and Paul Thomas Anderson basically had been writing this film. Well, the film was in the making for 12 years. He started writing it 12 years before the film actually was released, and I think it took him like 5 years to write it, and then it took them 5 years to actually get a production company to produce it, because no one wanted to produce this film because they didn't think it was going to make any money, which, I mean, they were right. It didn't make a whole lot of money, but
Yeah.
they didn't think it was worth the budget, which it wasn't, but it's still a fantastic movie. And I mean, that's
Yeah.
the sad thing about, you know, the production of movies, is that you can have a great idea and a fantastic movie, but if it's not going to do well in the box office, you won't get the same amount of money that those other films are going to get. And you know, this has gotten better since like 2014, when A24 started becoming a big production company, and A24 has enough money to start producing lots of more indie films that aren't going to get the same hype that all the other, you know, Netflix and big production company movies are going to get. And I that's great now, but it can still get better. But it is sad that a movie like this, well, first of all, didn't really get much viewership, and also just had such a difficult time to get produced. And I think I mean, this screenplay, even though, you know, even though it didn't appeal to a lot of people, it's brilliant, and it is going to go over a lot of people's heads. Went over my head the first time I watched it, but it really is brilliant. And the dialogue is so riveting. I mean, like the jail cell scene, like the processing scene, pretty much every scene in this movie, the dialogue is just fantastic. And I do agree with you. There are a couple scenes in there that I feel were a little bit too long. and a little bit slow. But overall, this is just a fantastic screenplay, and the dialogue carries it so much for me. And it's a reason why, even though this is a long movie, I was thoroughly entertained in a lot of scenes because the dialogue was just so good. I mean, it's similar to Good Will
Yeah.
Hunting, where the dialogue is
I
just so
agree.
good that you're still
The
entertained.
dialogue definitely carries the second and third act.
Yeah.
Like, I think the first act is definitely, in my opinion, the weakest. Just because of like the opening 30 minutes pre the cause, like I think it's a little bit on the boring side, but the dialogue and just the intensity of Freddy's character arc or straight line, depending on how you want to look at him, is really great in the second and third act, and it definitely carries it.
Okay, yeah, I give it a 7 out of 8. It was very close to an 8 out of 8, but it just wasn't there. But 7 out of 8
Yeah,
for screenplay
I
and dialogue.
gave it a 7 out of 8 as well. Yeah, with that being said, let's move on to soundtrack at a 7%.
I really like the soundtrack in this movie. I
Yeah,
think
same.
especially I like the song choices. Like they're using a lot of 40s 50 ballads, and it's really nice. You just like that kind of vibe. And the actual soundtrack itself is it's fun. I mean, it's very beautiful with their it's very orchestral. It all of the
Yeah.
soundtrack feels like a kind of 40s music, or even older, like 20s 30s music. If you get that vibe from all of it, and it carries through the
Yeah.
entire film, and I like it. They also use some very intense scoring, like to keep the tension up, and it has this like beat to it that's almost hypnotic to a certain extent, which I think is pretty
Yeah.
cool because this entire film is based around like hypnotic therapy with the
Yeah.
cause. So
I
the music
think
kind
that-
of is really fitting.
Yeah, in the first act especially, just in the montage almost of Freddy going from job to job, place to place, the score really just blends from one piece to the next, and it really just emphasizes the surreal nature of many of the scenes. And yeah, I really like the score. I like the soundtrack. It's really long. Like the soundtrack in total is 45 minutes long. Take notes, Martin Scorsese.
Yes, use lots of different
They have
scores.
they have a very long soundtrack, and all of it, yeah, it's either music that actually fits the time period, or it's just really nice scoring elements. I don't necessarily know if any of it's incredible, but it's just very solid. And like even that there's like almost like a Dunkirk ticking
Yeah.
drum beat near the end when things are starting to get more intense that really like makes you more invested and gets you kind of on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
I think that it's a very solid soundtrack.
And the other thing I liked about this score is that even though it is very intense at times and very strong, it never manages to overpower scenes. Which
For sure.
I love, because there's a lot of films, and this might be due to acting and writing, but there's a lot of films where they have similar scores, but the score feels like it's too over the top. It feels like it's overpowering a lot of scenes, and it doesn't do that in this film. Even though it is still a very powerful score, the actual film itself is just so strong that it's still able to carry over top of it. Yeah, it's a great score. It's not one that I would ever listen to, but it is fantastic, and it totally works
the
for
next
the entire
best
vibe
thing.
of the film. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I gave it a 7 out of 8.
That's out of 7%, bro.
Oh,
Soundtrack's
never
out
mind.
of 7.
I gave it a 6 out of 7. That's what I
Yeah,
meant to
same.
say.
I gave it a 6 out of 7 too. I think you're probably just looking at the screenplay.
Yeah, I think I was.
Yeah, I gave it a 6% out of 7 as well.
Great. Let's move on to production design out of 6.
Hell yeah. I think that the costumes in particular are super strong in this film. I just love the aesthetic of Freddy's different outfits, and especially Lancaster Dodds too.
Yeah, I love
they
the
just got
costumes.
really they just have nice aesthetics, and they fit the time, and yeah, they're just nice suits. I like that there's different suits. There's a lot of different suits, they're not reusing, and they're nice and colorful, and have some flashiness too. It spices it up from just having them wearing like very blue suits all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that the set design is good too. Obviously, you gotta recreate the look of post-war America. And yeah, I think that overall the production design is just very, very solid. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's something that all the costumes just work, and the colors surrounding this film are great too. I actually just love all the walls in this movie. Like, they all have this fitting color that just works for the entire color grade of this film.
Mm-hmm.
And I some of that is a lot location selection, but there's also times where they're on set and they obviously painted these walls to be these colors, and I really like that. And the costumes are fantastic. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of production design in this film. I mean, there is to a certain extent, but a lot of it is location selection. But
Yeah.
the set decoration is so good in this movie. Like, the actual just everything you see in the background of scenes, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, there's that scene where he has that reading of his book. Like, he has his first book reading.
Yeah.
And they chose a very bland basically office workspace, because that is realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, if a cult is gonna present their book, they're not gonna get a lot of places to do it, so they're in a very like random just gray room. But
Yeah.
but to make the shots more interesting, they put up posters, they put up streamers, they put up balloons, and they just make the set, even though it is a very bland room, they make the shots interesting, and they're able to get that colored bokeh through the streamers and through all of that. And
Hell yeah.
that's great,
And
because
that's what I look for.
yeah,
I look for
you're
that
using
bokeh.
set decoration to improve your cinematography. I mean, the cinematography would have still been good in that scene, but it's up to a whole nother level just because they add some yellow and blue streamers. I mean, it's smart. I can't give it full marks because there isn't a whole lot of actual production design, but overall, I think this is really strong costumes and set, and just good use of like color meshing. Great. I gave it 5 out of 6.
Yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 6 too. I agree. Now let's move on to location selection.
Oh, so good.
I
So
love the
good.
location selection. It's so awesome. And I just love the variety. There's
So much
so
variety.
many locations. I mean, you have everywhere from a desert to the ocean. Like, literally two polar
True.
opposites and everything in between.
I mean, you had that
And
in
it
Where
just
the
really-
Wild Things Are too.
Yeah, facts. They just really have such... really, the biggest flex of the location selection is the really nice wide shots they're always able to get. Like, the wide
Yes.
shots in this film are just incredible because they're showing off these big locations or just some nice houses in, like, Philadelphia suburbs. That just make for, like, really, really nice shots. Like, the cinematography, this is one of the most beautiful films of all time.
It is. It really is.
And the location selection just 100% is absolutely
Complimentary.
attributed to that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's beautiful. I mean, that desert where they are biking on, it's just beautiful. Like, off into the distance with the sun in the background, and you got this desert floor, and it's not really sand, it's more of this like broken rock, and it's just beautiful. And that cabbage field that he's working on at the start of the film that he's farming on, it's just gorgeous. Like, when he's running from them in the fog.
It's so good.
Oh,
And let's
so
not
good.
forget just all the beautiful teal oceans. there's so many shots of water, and it's so they use the shot of the wake of boats so much, like it's cheating, but it looks so sick.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's just, and you get that, there's so much depth of field in this film, so you get that, like, light glimmering off the ocean, bokeh, with the blue. Oh, it's so good. I love the locations. Like, there's not a lot I can say. It's just every location in this film is, like, solid, if not perfect.
Yeah, there's no lazy locations, and even if even the less intricate locations, they just find such creative ways to make the shots interesting.
Yeah, they do.
You know, they'll just find a way with lighting or really anything to make the shots interesting. They really add a lot to every location. You know, even if it's just a room, they'll shoot it in such a way that it really adds to the emotion. So yeah, I gave it full marks, 6% out of 6.
Totally, me too. It's a 6 out of 6. Great location selection. So let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come in with cinematography. Okay, we are back heading into cinematography, which is out of 10.
My favorite category.
Oh, I love it.
This is possibly one of the most beautiful films of all time. It's definitely up there with, like, Atonement. Like...
Yeah. Like, up until now, Atonement was our most beautiful movie. It has been surpassed, in my opinion, by The Master. I mean, Atonement is still beautiful, but The Master is just top tier.
Because this film is more than just technically beautiful. Like, Atonement is, like, yes, it's beautiful, but they're not really using their locations and the cinematography for creative purposes. It's more of just a flex. Like, it's beautiful look. This film
it is,
just
to a certain extent.
Oh, there's just such a surreal nature to the whole film, and the beautiful, shallow cinematography is just adding to it. It's gorgeous. They just really utilize that creamy bokeh effect all the time, and I am a big fan of bokeh. If you know anything about me and Lucas, you know we love us some bokeh. So this film just really pans to our liking. Yeah.
Yes. And this film doesn't cheat at all. Like, even though it is beautiful, I mean, it's a 16:9 aspect
Exactly.
ratio.
It's not even cheating with widescreen.
It's not even cheating with widescreen. And the color grade in this film is, like, really cool, and it changes from scene to scene. And it has this very 1960s feel to the entire movie. I mean, this film was shot on 65mm film, which is very rare. Usually they shoot on 35.
65 is unheard of.
But 65 is unheard of, especially now. But they shot on 65, and it just looks so good. Like, the film grain, it looks so good. And it's like you're watching a movie that looks like it was made in the 60s, but it has the contrast and focus of a 2000s movie. It's like the perfect combo.
It's got the film aesthetic, but also with the modern cinematography, shallow depth of field. And really, they also just use lighting contrast so well. Like, I think one scene in particular is the first scene where Lancaster and Freddy meet. I had to point this out because they basically, the shot of Freddy, like the reverse of Freddy, the way they lit him is so that, you know, he's standing with basically a pitch black wall on his right side and the bright doorway on his left, and they've lit it so the light side of his face is on the right, and it's just it's so cool. Like he's got the light side of his face in the dark and the dark and the light, and it's just amazing. And they really take the shoot from the dark side of the face kind of way of filmmaking, because, you know, that's a very cinematic way to do things, and they just take it to the next level. Like, this film's got some shadows. It's dramatic when it needs to be.
Yeah, it does.
I love it.
Yeah. Yes, it's great. This is just a beautiful movie. I mean, and I love the use of camera movement in this film. I mean, they use so
And
much
they
camera
have some
movement.
tracking shots too.
It's
They got some good tracking shots too.
They do. They got some great long shots. I mean, that shot
Of him running
near the start of the movie when he's working as the cameraman. Well, yeah, that one too. But when he's working at the camera as the cameraman, there's that girl who's walking around the store trying to sell that jacket. It's like a 2-minute take of her walking around.
Guy, like even the shot of him adjusting the lights is one take. On that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And then they have like that they're throwing things at each other. It's great. Great cinematography. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, I mean not Philip Seymour, Paul Thomas Anderson usually likes to do some handheld, and unfortunately he wasn't able to do any handheld in this film because they were shooting on 65 millimeter and the camera is just huge.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, I like the aesthetic of having it be very still. Like
I do too. And it also made him have to move the camera more, like because he likes handheld, and Paul Thomas Anderson doesn't like static shots, as you can probably tell in this film. Like there's some static shots, but he likes to keep the camera. Like
obviously
moving. He likes to keep it moving. He always has it on.
Obviously, in a intense 2-person dialogue scene between they're gonna have it be static, but yeah, oh my god, it's just. I gave it full marks for cinematography. I gave it 10% out of 10.
Me too.
Anything else would just be a crime.
It really would. It's a 10 out of 10 for cinematography. Oh my god. Guys, even if you think this movie is slow or something, just watch it for how beautiful it is. It's such an experience. And I mean, watching it on the screen for the first time, like I said, the first time I watched it in 480p. It's not worth it.
I watched it on my laptop, but I wish I watched it on a big TV.
Let's move on to editing, which is out of 8.
Yeah, I think that the editing is very, very strong, and just it really got some solid cuts and parallel editing too. I think especially well edited is kind of the standout scene of the whole film. The first processing scene. Just the way it edits that scene with the flashback, and also just the way it cuts between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix. They really hold on reaction shots for so long, and I really love the way that scene is edited.
There's something about editing, and editing is such a hard thing to teach because it's very much about instinct. It's about just knowing in yourself when you want to cut and when you want to cut to a different angle. And it's hard to explain why because it is very instinctive. And the instincts for this film is just so good. I mean, every intense scene, it feels like they've cut it perfectly. Like they know when to cut to a reaction shot. They know when to just hold it on an actor's face. And that's a skill that's really not seen a lot in film, especially nowadays. Film, they like lots of angles, lots of quick cuts.
Yeah.
And it's not seen that often where you just hold on a character for a while. And that's really great. I also really like the montage scene in the middle of the film when he's at the house in Philadelphia and he's basically walking back and forth between the wall and the window.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a montage between that and also him and Rami Malek sitting in opposite chairs doing that test with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and also just a bunch of other stuff that's kind of blended into that scene. I really like that montage, and it was edited really well.
Yeah.
I don't think the editing is perfect in this film. I do think that there are moments that could have been cut short.
Yeah, I agree.
Some lines that could have been, but overall, when you're looking at the actual technique of editing, it's really well done. Yeah,
I think that overall, the editing is very strong. And the instincts are good. And I love the color grade too. You got to mention that with editing.
Yeah.
But there's just not that much in terms of crazy editing that stands out. But like I always say, the best editing is editing that you don't even notice. And at the end of the day, that's what this film does. And for that reason, it warrants a 7% out of 8 for me. Very, very strong, but not really at the top level.
Yep, I agree. 7 out of 8 for editing. Loved it. Let's move on to acting. This is a big one. Out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, when your three lead actors are all nominated for Oscars, you're doing something right.
Yeah,
The
you
acting in
really
this
are.
film is incredible, and looking back, this is such a star-studded cast. I
It
mean,
is.
even though Remy Malek and Jesse Plemons were at the beginnings of their careers and they weren't very well known yet, I mean, they give good performances, and yeah, like looking back, these are all names that are well known now, and
Mm-hmm.
are really just some of my favorite actors out right now. Even Amy Adams gives one of the best performances. Like, I mean, okay, it's hard to argue that she's better than Joaquin Phoenix or Philip Seymour Hoffman, but she's up there. You know, she gives a really really great
Oh yeah,
performance.
she does. And I mean, I know this film isn't as mainstream as Joker, but I think that this is Joaquin Phoenix's best performance to date, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Oh yeah.
I actually think that, like, for me, it's so close between this and Her. I also think his performance in Her is just so good, but I think this takes the cake for his greatest performance. I mean, it's so emotionally raw, and he's playing such a damaged individual with so many problems. Um, and just how into the character is, his posture, how he walks, and yeah, just the processing scene in general when he breaks down talking about Doris, it's just mesmerizing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I mean, oh, like the two main characters in this film are so good that even if this film had some supporting characters that weren't as strong, I would completely look past that just because of how good the like main characters are. But this film doesn't really have that either. It doesn't have any supporting characters that I
Yeah.
thought were bad by any means. I mean, for me, there isn't a lot to say. This is a full marks for acting, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. Same here. I mean, the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman takes the cake for me. Like, don't get me wrong, Joaquin Phoenix's performance is amazing, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. There's just something about the nuance of Lancaster Dodd's character, just how charismatic and manipulative that he is. It's
Yeah.
just really amazing. And oh, the Oscars were absolutely robbed from these two. Um, I mean, yeah, there's really not much to say. Like, their performances speak for themselves. They're just incredible. I gave it full marks too, 10%.
Okay, that's yeah. It's just top tier acting. Yeah, let's
Mm-hmm.
move on to entertainment value, which is out of 10. I know that a lot of people find this movie boring, and I know that a lot of people find it extremely slow, and it is. I'm not gonna lie, it is a slow movie, and you have
Yeah,
to really be into like film to get this to really enjoy this movie. Like if
yeah.
you're the kind of person who really only watches, big blockbuster action movies, nothing against those, but this just isn't going to be the film for you. You're not going to be entertained, and you're definitely going to come out of this really bored.
Like,
Um,
you feel pretentious watching this. I'm not gonna lie. This is, like,
yeah,
the same thing with my favorite film of this year. I'm thinking of ending things. It's just like you feel like a nerd and like a jerk for like ranking it as one of your top films, because the reality is that this film has a smaller audience just because of how artsy it is and how deep it is, and yeah, at the end of the day, how slow it is. Um,
yeah,
but to me, like, I could sit down and watch this film equally as like hyped as I would be to watch, like, I don't know, like a new Star Wars or a Marvel film. Like
hmm,
obviously in terms of just pure entertainment, it's not going to be as entertaining. But
yeah.
just the rewatch value on the Master is incredible. I mean, you'll get something
It is.
out of this
Yeah.
film each time. Like even I didn't know that was a dream. Like, I've seen this film twice already, so Yeah,
Yeah, there's so much that you catch, and this film is deep to a certain extent that you every time you watch it, you're just gonna find new things. And it's even though yes, it's slow, because of how good the acting, the dialogue, and just the visuals are, at least I was still very entertained. And as I said before, this was my favorite viewing experience of all the films we've done so far. And we've done
Yeah.
some films that mainstream wise are very like quote unquote entertaining. But this film just, I don't know, it was like a completely different feeling for me. Like I was watching it and I was just like completely entrapped in the film. And even though yes, there are some slower scenes, I was just thoroughly entertained. I give it an 8 out of 10 for entertainment value.
Yeah, I gave it 8% as well. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just not the most traditionally entertaining film, but it's just very solid.
Yeah. Okay, overall technical achievement. I
Final
mean,
category.
this one's pretty obvious for me. Every single technical like section we've looked at so far hasn't got worse than 1 mark off of full marks. I mean, it's just great.
Like, I think that technically this film is extremely strong. Just the way it blends the cinematography with the editing just makes for this really surreal viewing experience that truly it just benefits the story so much. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what else to say. Technically speaking, it's just extremely solid and really just a perfect example of how to shoot a film like closely intertwined with the story. Having your visual elements be very matching your tone of the story. It's just great.
It is. And I mean, this is probably the closest of all the films we've done so far to a full mark for technical achievement, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean,
I think Children of Men was also very close.
Children of Men is a bit stronger for me, technically speaking.
Mm-hmm. Technically,
just because all those tracking shots, but
yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is also a 14% out of 15. It's still
Definitely.
Not perfect. Don't
Still
know if there
will
ever be a perfect film.
Yeah, in order to get perfect, you gotta get perfect marks in all the technical categories, even if you have one.
You just gotta blow our minds.
Yeah, you really.
And I
do.
really don't know if there's a film out there that could do that.
I haven't seen it. So yeah, 14 out of 15. As you guys can probably tell, this film's going to get a pretty high rating for both of us. But let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with our overall or our total percentages, and then we'll spin the wheel and see what we're doing for next week. Okay, and we are back, and we have tallied up our final overall scores for The Master. So,
yep.
Ben, what did you give it?
Overall, I gave it a 91% out of 100.
Nice.
Very high score.
I like it.
Third highest so far.
Okay,
Under Brazil and Children of Men. What did you give it overall?
Overall, I gave The Master a 90%. Only my second film.
Ooh.
Yeah, only my second film to ever hit the 90s. So that's great. So that means you gave it a 91, I give it a 90. So that gives it an average score of a 90.5, which means that The Master has hit our second tier. It is our second placed film so far.
Yeah, I think it totally deserves to be up there with Children of Men.
Yeah.
I do have to say, I think Children of Men does have the edge on it.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But really, this film is just such a great modern cinematic masterpiece and a must-watch for anybody interested in film or anybody who needs to deeply reflect on their lives as a whole.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
With that being said, that concludes our review of The Master. let's spin that
Let's
wheel
do it.
and see what we're gonna get next
Yeah,
week.
I'm hyped. Yeah, let's do it.
Dude, I'm kind of hoping for a comedy. We haven't really had a comedy yet.
Yeah, that would be nice. Haven't had many of those.
Or just a Wes Anderson. Dude, I want a
yeah.
Wes Anderson film.
Yeah, I know you want a Wes Anderson film.
I wanna. Yeah, dude, I wanna absolutely.
Dude, once you get The Life Aquatic.
Dude, the day it lands on The Life Aquatic, it's the first film to get 100%.
The bias is going to be crazy.
I like.
So much bias.
Oh my god, it's gonna be even worse than Brazil. And Brazil, I absolutely love Brazil, but The Life Aquatic is like.
Oh god.
All right, like okay, let's just get this.
Okay,
over
let's
with.
spin. Let's spin
hit
this
me with
wheel
it.
up.
Hit me with it quick.
Yeah. Okay, I got it pulled up. I got QuickTime Player. Nice. Let's pull up screen record. Yeah, and we are spinning in 3, 2, 1.
Oh. Hopefully it's a film I've never seen, so I can get that first viewing experience.
Okay. So we have landed on a movie called The Farewell.
Huh.
Yeah, I've seen this movie. It's a sweet movie, and it is kind of a comedy, which is nice. This will be a fun one.
Is this the one about the Chinese grandma who's she has cancer and she doesn't know that she only has like a few weeks to live, but all the family members know?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. I've never seen this, but I've been wanting to.
Well, that's sweet. Nice. Yeah, so you want to give a quick plot summary?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Billy's family returns to China under the guise of a fake wedding to stealthily say goodbye to their beloved matriarch, the only person that doesn't know she has a few weeks to live. Directed by Lulu Wang, starring Awkwafina and Zhao Shuzhen and Zima, Diana Lin. It's from what I've heard, it's just a solid dramedy. Obviously, it's got very mature subject matter, or a very intense.
Yeah, it's a really dark
subject
comedy.
matter.
Really dark comedy. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is an A24. It's an A24 film.
Gotta love A24.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to watch this. It should be one of the more casual films we've done so far.
Yeah, it will be nice. Nice little switch up with our filmography here.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and this week we are putting onto the wheel The Shining, which was a requested film.
Oh, God.
What?
No.
Oh, you don't like The Shining?
Okay. Well, I like it, but it's scary.
Wait, do you not like scary movies?
No, I don't like scary movies,
What?
dude. What do you mean?
When did this happen?
I get scared, dude. I don't like scary movies.
What?
Well, this is, unique, though, because this film is, terrifying. What? It's scary.
Okay, so, when Halloween comes around, we're gonna do a horror movie showdown like we did at Christmas, and we're just gonna torture Ben. Absolutely torture him.
Okay, well, it's gotta be specific, though. It can't be some cheap... I don't think a lot of modern... horror movies that just kind of rely on jump scares are scary. The Shining is unique.
Okay.
It's just disturbing.
We'll get some horror masterpieces then. Okay, well, that was our review of The Master, so thank you everyone for listening, and make sure to watch The Farewell before next week's podcast, and we'll see you all next Monday. Thanks for listening. See you later.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to Slightly Qualified Film Students.
Make sure to tune in next week for a new film discussion and review.
Our theme song is Slightly Sexy by Thompson Springs.
Make sure to subscribe and leave us a like.
Send us feedback and comments as well as your thoughts on the film. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at S_Q_F_S.
If you would like to send us a question or a comment for next week's episode, you can email us at sqfilmstudents@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.